Hello everyone, welcome to the video notes series for class 11th Business Studies presented by businesslikeNotes.com. With this series, you can quickly learn and revise the concept of business studies by simply watching these video notes. If you want regular updates on our series, subscribe to our channel. So let's begin with Chapter 1, Business, Trade and Commerce. Created and owned by Manasvi Mehta, founder of businesslikeNotes.com. This chapter is divided into two sections. Section 1 deals with history of trade and commerce in ancient India, and Section 2 deals with concept, nature and purpose of business. In Section 1, we cover history of trade and commerce, indigenous banking system, rise of intermediaries, transport, trading communities, merchant corporation, major trade centers, exports and imports, what was the position of Indian subcontinent in the world economy, and how India began to re-industrialize. In Section 2, we study about concept of business, characteristics of business activities, comparison of it with profession and employment, classification of business activities, trade, auxiliaries to trade, objective of business, business risk, their nature, and what are the basic factors to start a business. Why trade flourished in ancient India? The economic and commercial evolution of any land depends upon its physical environment, which stands true for Indian subcontinent as a whole because it has Himalayas in the north, bordered by the water in the south. Then there is a network of roads merging into Silk Route, which helped in establishing commercial and political contacts with foreign kingdoms and empires of Asia and rest of the world. The maritime routes link the east and the west by sea and were used for trade of spices. Therefore, it is also known as a spice route. Due to the flow of wealth through these routes, the chief kingdoms, important trade centers, and industrial belt flourished, which in turn further facilitated the progress of domestic and international trade in ancient India. Trade and commerce have played a vital role in making India to evolve as a major actor in the economic world in ancient times. Archaeological evidence have proved the same, where trade and commerce was the mainstay of the economy of ancient India, carried out by water and land. Commercial cities like Harappa and Mohenjo-daro were founded in the 3rd millennium BC. These civilizations had established commercial connection with Mesopotamia and used to trade in various commodities like colored gemstones, beads, pearls, seashells, terracotta pots, gold, silver, copper, etc. The period was marked by substantial commercial activities and urban development. Political economy and military security during the ancient time united most of the Indian subcontinent, and trade regulations were carefully planned. There were diverse types of coins and weighing practices, which used to vary from place to place with the help of the money changers and by resorting to certain commonly accepted weights and measures, which we will cover in next section. Indigenous banking system. As economic life progressed, metal began to supplement other commodities as money because of its durability and divisibility. As money served as a medium of exchange, the introduction of metallic money and its use accelerated economic activities. Documents such as hundi and chitti were in use for carrying out transactions in which money passed from hand to hand. Hundi as an instrument of exchange, which was prominent in the subcontinent, involved a contract which warrant the payment of money, the promise or order which is unconditional, capable of change through transfer by valid negotiation. With the development of banking, people began to deposit precious metals, with lending individuals functioning as bankers or saints, who played a prominent role in lending money and financing domestic and foreign trade with currency and letter of credit. Therefore, money became an instrument for supplying the manufacturer with a mean of producing more goods. Agriculture and domestication of animals were important components of the economic life of ancient people. Due to the favorable climate condition, they were able to raise two or sometimes three crops in a year. In addition to this, by resorting to weaving cotton, dyeing fabrics, utensil handicraft, sculpting, making clay pots, cottage industry, manufacturing, transport, they were able to generate surplus and saving for further investments. Workshops and karkhana were prominent where skilled artisans worked and converted raw material into finished goods, which were high in demand. Family-based apprenticeship system was in practice and duly followed in acquiring trade-specific skills. The artisans, craftsmen, and skilled laborer of different kinds learned and developed skills and knowledge which were passed on from one generation to another. As we learned from last two sections that trade and commerce was mainstay of ancient India's economy, intermediaries played a prominent role in the promotion of trade. They comprised of commission agents, brokers, and distributors, both for wholesale and retail goods. The institution of Jagat Seths also developed and exercised great influence during Mughal period and the days of East India Company. They provided financial security to the manufacturers by assuming responsibility for the risk involved, especially in foreign trade. An expanding trade brought in huge amounts of silver bullion into Asia, and a large share of that bullion gravitated towards India. Foreign trade was financed by loan. However, the rate of interest for longer voyages was kept high in view of the high risk involved. The emergence of credit transactions and availability of loans and advances enhanced commercial operations. The Indian subcontinent enjoyed the fruit of favorable balance of trade where exports exceeded imports with large margins, and indigenous banking system benefited the manufacturer, traders and merchants with additional capital funds for expansion and development. This is where banks came into picture. Commercial and industrial banks later evolved to finance trade and commerce, and agriculture banks to provide both short and long-term loans to finance the agriculturalist. As transport by land and water was popular in the ancient time, trade was maintained by both land and sea. Roads as a mean of communication had assumed key importance in the entire process of growth, particularly of the inland trade and for trade overland. The Northern Roadway route is believed to have stretched originally from Bengal to Takshila. There were also trade routes in the south, spreading east and west. Trade routes were structurally wide and suitable for speed and safety. Maritime trade was another important branch of global trade network. Malabar coast, on which Mujiras is situated, has a long history of international maritime trade going back to the era of the Roman Empire. Pepper was particularly valued in the Roman Empire and was known as black gold. For centuries, it remained the reason for rivalry and conflict between various empires and trade powers to dominate the route for this trade. It was in the search for an alternate route to India for spices that led to the discovery of America by Columbus in the closing years of 15th century, and also brought Vasco da Gama to the shores of Malabar coast in 1498. Calicut was such a bustling emporium that it was even visited by the Chinese ships to acquire items like frankincense, that is essential oil, and myrrh, that is fragrant resin used in perfume medicine, from the Middle East, as well as pepper, diamonds, pearl, and cotton from India. On the Coromandel coast, Pulicat was a major port in the 17th century. Textiles were the principal export from Pulicat to Southeast Asia. Moving on to next section, trading communities strengthened. In different parts of the country, different communities dominated trade. Punjabi and Multani merchants handled business in the northern region, while the Bhatts managed trade in the states of Gujarat and Rajasthan. In western India, these groups were called Mahajan. Chut were important traders from the south. In urban centers such as Ahmedabad, the Mahajan community, collectively represented by their chief, called Nagar Seth. Other urban groups included professional classes such as Hakim and Ved physician, Vakil lawyer, Pandit or Mullah teachers, painters, musicians, calligraphers, etc. Moving on to next section, merchant corporations. The merchant community also derived power and prestige from guilds, which were autonomous corporations formed to protect the interest of the traders. These corporations, organized on formal basis, framed their own rules of membership and professional code of conduct, which even kings were supposed to accept and respect. Trade and industry taxes were also major source of revenue. There were three kinds of taxes which trader had to pay. First, octroi duties, which were levied on most of the imported articles at varying rates. They were paid either in cash or in kind. Second, custom duties, varied according to commodities. They also varied from province to province. Third, ferry tax was another source of income generation. It had to be paid for passengers, goods, cattle, and carts. The right to receive the labor tax was usually transferred to the local bodies. The guild chief dealt directly with the king or tax collector and settled the market toll on behalf of its fellow merchants at a fixed sum of money. The guild merchants also acted as custodian of religious interest. They undertook the task of building temples and made donation by levying a corporate tax on their members. The commercial activity thus enabled big merchants to gain power in the society. Major trade centers. There were all kinds of towns, port towns, manufacturing towns, mercantile towns, the sacred centers, and pilgrimage towns. Their existence is an index of prosperity of merchant communities and professional classes. Now we are going to discuss the leading trade centers in ancient India, starting with Patliputra. Known as Patna today, it was not only a commercial town but also a major center of export of stones. Peshawar. It was an important exporting center for wool and for import of horses. It had a huge share in commercial transactions between India, China, and Rome in 1st century AD. Takshila. It served as a major center on the important land route between India and Central Asia. It was also a city of financial and commercial bank. The city occupied an important place as a Buddhist center of learning. The famous Takshila University flourished here. Indraprasth. It was the commercial junction on the Royal Road where most routes leading to the east, west, south, and north converged. Mathura. It was an emporium of trade and people here subsisted on commerce. Many routes from South India touched Mathura and Bharuch. Varanasi. It was well placed as it lay both on the Gangetic route and on the highway that linked north with the east. It grew as a major center of textile industry and became famous for beautiful wool silk cloth and sandalwood. workmanship. It had links with Takshila and Bharuch. Mithila. The traders of Mithila crossed the sea by boats through the Bay of Bengal to the South China Sea and traded at ports of the island of Java, Sumatra, and Borneo. Mithila established trading colonies in South China, especially in Yunnan. Ujjain. Agate, carnelian, muslin, and mallow clothes were exported from Ujjain to different centers. It also had trade relation through the land route with Takshila and Peshawar. Surat. It was the emporium of western trade during the Mughal period. Textiles of Surat were famous for their gold borders, jari. It is noteworthy that the Surat Hundi was honored in far-off markets of Egypt and Iran. Kanchi. Today known as Kanchipuram, it was here that the Chinese used to come in foreign ships to purchase pearls, glass, and rare stones, and in return they sold gold and silk. Madura. It was the capital of Pandyas, who controlled the pearl fisheries of the Gulf of Mannar. It attracted foreign merchants, particularly Romans, for carrying out overseas trade. Bharuch. It was the greatest seat of commerce in western India. It was situated on the bank of river Narmada and was linked with all important marts of roadways. Kaveri Patta, also known as Kaveri Patnam, it was scientific in its construction as a city and provided loading, unloading, and strong facilities of merchandise. Foreign traders had their headquarters in this city. It was a convenient place for trade with Malaysia, Indonesia, China, and Far East. It was the center of trade for perfume, cosmetics, and silk, wool, cotton, coral, pearls, gold, and precious stones, and also for shipbuilding. Tamralipiti. It was known as one of the greatest ports, connected both by sea and land with the west and the far east. It was linked by road of Banaras and Takshila. Major exports and imports. Exports consisted of spices, wheat, sugar, indigo, opium, sesame oil, cotton, parrot, live animals and animal products like hides, skin, furs, horns, tortoise shells, pearls, sapphires, quartz, crystal, lapis, granites, turquoise and copper, etc. Whereas imports included horses, animal products, Chinese silk, flax and linen, wine, gold, silver, tin, copper, lead, rubies, coral, glass, amber, etc. Moving on to next section, position of Indian subcontinent in world economy, 180 up to 1991. Between the 1st and the 17th century CE, India is estimated to have the largest economy of the ancient and medieval period, controlling about one-third and one-fourth of the world's wealth. The country was often referred to as Swarnbhumi or Swarndeep in the writings of many travelers, such as Fahim, Huan Tsang, Ibn Battuta, Frenchman Francois, and others. They repeatedly refer to the prosperity of the country. The pre-colonial period in Indian history was an age of prosperity for Indian economy and made the Europeans embark great voyage of discovery. Initially they came to plunder but soon realized the rewards of trade in exchange of gold and silver. Despite the growing commercial sector, it is evident that the 18th century India was far behind Western Europe in technology, innovation and ideas. With the increasing control of East India Company causing lack of freedom and no occurrence of agricultural and scientific revolution, limited reach of education to the masses, population growth and preference to machine over manual skills made India a country which was prosperous but with people who were poor. The British Empire began to take roots in India in the mid-18th century. The East India Company used revenues generated by the provinces under its rule for purchasing raw materials, spices, and goods. Hence, the continuous inflow of bullion that used to come on account of foreign trade stopped. This changed the condition of the Indian economy from being an exporter of processed goods to the exporter of raw materials and buyer of manufactured goods. Let us learn how India begins to re-industrialize. After independence, the process of rebuilding the economy started and India went for centralized planning. The first 5-year plan was implemented in 1952. In this plan, due importance was given to the establishment of modern industries, modern technological and scientific institutes, space and nuclear programs. Despite these efforts, the Indian economy could not develop at a rapid pace. The major reason for this were lack of capital formation, rise in population, huge expenditure on defense, and inadequate infrastructure. As a result, India relied heavily on the borrowings from foreign sources and finally agreed to economic liberalization in 1991. The Indian economy is one of the fastest growing economies in the world today and a preferred FDI destination. Rising incomes, savings, investment opportunities, increased domestic consumption, and younger population ensures growth for decades to come. The high growth sectors have been identified which are likely to grow at a rapid pace world over, and the recent initiative of the Government of India such as Make in India, Skill India, Digital India, and rollout of the Foreign Trade Policy FTP 2015 to 20 is expected to help the economy in terms of export and imports and trade balances. Well, this leads to end of first section of chapter 1. Thank you all for watching this video. I hope all of you like this video. If you want regular updates on this channel, please like and subscribe this channel and comment if you want video notes for the next chapter. Thank you all.